Today, I'm sitting down to talk to a hero in natural health, Charlie Dubois. He's the president and CEO of Standard Process, which, friends, it is one of the most respected supplement companies in the US. And that's in large part because Charlie has a vision to change people's lives. He really wants to help. And so, Charlie, I've been looking forward to this conversation because your story challenges one of the biggest assumptions in modern public health that we hear all the time, because we're constantly told at every level of government that if we want to feed the world, if we want to care for the world, then we need to provide healthcare at scale, that compromise is necessary, and that we have to modify nature and rely on chemicals and add fillers and preservatives. And then somewhere along the way, we have to just eventually agree to compromise. And that is a story in academia, it's a story at every level of government. But I believe that your leadership and your story raises a different possibility. And so I really think that this conversation will encourage so many in light of the times that we're living in. So thank you so much for sitting down with me today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Leah. I appreciate the opportunity to share my story and share the story of Standard Process, and again, hopefully inspire others to do the same. So,
Now, I'm going to jump right in because my husband forwarded me an email that you wrote after the Thorn acquisition. And what
oh,
struck me was it
yeah,
wasn't really what you said about another company, about Thorn, but it was what you said about your company, Standard Process, and really reiterating that it is not for sale and it never will be. And is that essentially what you were saying in the email?
yeah, absolutely. And again, I mean, we've been a family-owned business for nearly 100 years. We'll be coming up on our 100th anniversary in 2029. So that's really exciting. But as I've looked at that and seen what Standard Process is all about and how I've taken on this leadership, it was to carry on the work of my great uncle, Dr. Royal Lee, who founded this company and started all this in 1929. And it's really easy to get and have the passion for what this company is all about and to understand the concepts behind developing products that are based on whole foods and that literally serve people's nutritional needs and keep people's health. So when I look at all those concepts, it's not a matter of what's the structure of the company, what's the plan to sell it in the future or to capitalize on everything. My whole vision has been to carry on his legacy, Dr. Royal Lee's legacy, and pass it on to the next generation. And I'm really proud that after 40, going on 42 years with Standard Process, that I'm passing it on to the fourth generation. Two of my kids are actively involved, and that's what gives me so much pride and everything and honor, really, to carry on.
I mean, that's a very rare story because it seems like the trajectory is that a founder builds a company to have an exit in mind. And what do you think would be lost if Standard Process went with that normal trajectory and sold?
Yeah, I look at typically what happens to a lot of these companies. And unfortunately, the way we do things here and having our own certified organic farms where we grow and raise the crops and extract the nutrients out of whole foods, and do all that just to get a raw material when you could buy cheaper raw materials from China, buy cheaper raw materials from other suppliers throughout the world. And is that really the best way to provide these products to people? So we do feel the best way is to control that process from beginning all the way through manufacturing right to the end. And it gives me greater confidence in the quality of our products. I know I can get up out of my office and go a mile down the road and see the crops growing in the fields, understand the process behind it and ensure and completely, that what we're getting is as close to nature as possible. And I think just that alone would not be kept intact if this company were sold. And there's a lot of consolidation in this industry these days, and big companies and uh, large PE firms and everything else are just snapping up companies like ours right and left. I get an offer to buy Standard Process probably once a week, a serious offer. And my message is still the same. It's not for sale. And all these things I think would be lost because really the end goal of not changing people's lives with these products, but making a profit, how to be more profitable, how to ensure that shareholder value is at the highest level, that you have to look at all these investors as they want their money back from their investment. It's just a different paradigm than a family business who's making a product that changes people's lives. And that's the most important part of what we do here at Standard Process.
Well, when Dr. Lamar shared a little bit about your family's history with me, that conviction you just described began to make even more sense. And, this, what he told me is this simply not a company that landed in your lap, but you actually had to fight to keep it in your family. And would you be willing to tell that story?
Yeah, I mean, and again, sometimes you look back in life and you just go, "Wow, did that actually happen? Was that real?" And I think the way that death taxes are in this country and the way we penalize family businesses for just trying to go from one generation to the next, it's really unfortunate. And when my aunt, who was 104 years old, passed away in 1995. My father was the sole heir to my aunt's estate. My father had passed, unfortunately, 4 months before she did. So we were faced with the next generation being myself, my sister, and my brother. We were faced with 85% generation skipping tax to inherit our family business. Well, needless to say that was really difficult to swallow. We couldn't afford to do that. I was 29 years old. I borrowed more in millions than I was in years of age to basically buy the company from the estate and continue it on. And so I think I was able to do that because I had such a passion for the business and starting out pulling weeds in the beet fields when I was 18 years old, and really knew that there was something different to this company. And so when that opportunity came up, it was a matter of, look, I mean, I just lost my aunt, I just lost my father, and at 29 years old, what do I want to do? And this is what I wanted to do. I saw the lives that we changed with these products, and I knew that if I didn't step up, if I didn't take control of this and try to figure out how to make this work, this company would have been sold, and unfortunately, wouldn't be, I don't think, the company that it is today.
At 29, did that feel like a huge risk to you? Or were you like, no, this is totally going to work out? I can take out millions and millions of dollars in debt and it'll pan out just fine? Or did you feel like you were fighting hard for something?
I felt I was completely underwater in a sea that was 800 feet deep, and I was at the bottom. Um, but at the same time, I look at things like that, and I truly do believe that if you're doing something for the right reason, if your thoughts are pure and it's the truth, and you're working towards a goal, something good, and it's not just for so I can line my pockets with cash. If there's a greater good, I really do feel that the right thing works. Things do work out. I'm sure I had divine intervention on that whole process because it took me 14 months. There were probably 14 or 15 different law firms that were involved in settling this estate. I wanted to do it quickly. I was still trying to run the company and make things work on a daily basis. And we had a lot of things that needed to change so that we could be more efficient, so that we could carry this on. And all of a sudden, sitting there with all this debt and not really even understanding. I mean, I was an electrical engineer that had graduated and was really focused on that. was working on my master's degree, but hadn't finished it just yet. And all of a sudden, this all lands in my lap. And so I really felt that, because of what we do, because of the lives that we change, there, I had a lot of help that I didn't know was there, making sure that this was going to happen and be carried on. Yeah.
Well, it seems like there must have been people around you that also believed in your great uncle's mission and vision too. And who was Dr. Royoli? Can you remind me who exactly was he that started this company?
Yeah. Yeah, so Dr. Roy Lee has got just a fascinating history and in story behind that. I mean, the man was just an absolute genius. Grew up in Dodgeville, Wisconsin, which is just probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours from where we're at now. And he just lived a really, you know, kind of simple life on a farm and everything else, but always had that connection to the earth and to farm. And then he became kind of a self-taught electrical engineer, developed an engineering company called Lee Engineering. And it came up with the first variable speed motor and did all sorts of different things on that level. He held something like 98 different patents throughout his life. And he was always just curious about things and trying to make people's lives better. And when all of a sudden some health challenges affected his mom, basically, and what she was going through and his family, he tried to get to the bottom of that and really realized that nutrition was a key component to the health that they were experiencing and health challenges. So, and now rewind that. That was in the 1920s. And what he realized was how the food companies were devitalizing the food, the bleaching of the flour, the processing that was happening back then. Imagine how it is now, but back then in the 20s. And he saw this and he saw that people were, because of their health challenges, they were literally malnutritioned. They weren't getting the proper nutrition. They're getting the calories, just not the true nutrition that was needed to sustain health and to fight off disease and all sorts of things like that. So Dr. Lee found that as his true passion. And he actually got into creating and developing dental tools. So he became a dentist. And then while being a dentist as well, he understood that, the teeth and the mouth was just such a great s- kind of a foreshadowing of people's health. And so he really saw that too and thought, as a dentist, I could pull teeth, I can fix them, but I want to get to the root cause. And he saw that as nutritional deficiencies as well. So there are all these things that he was working on. And in 1929, he came up with our first product that we still actually formulate and have today that's similar to, if not exactly the same as it was back in 1929. And that's a product called Catalin. And it's kind of our multi-vitamin, multi-mineral product. But if you look at the label, it doesn't have a lot of minerals in it. It doesn't have a lot of vitamins in it because they're all from whole food natural sources. So he saw the real benefit of that, of having a product that was as close to nature as possible, that has natural vitamins and minerals in it, and that is going to be food, basically concentrated food for the body. And that's how this all started. And so Dr. Lee was just on this quest and started this company. They literally sold Catalin, him and his sisters, door to door in downtown Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So imagine that, he must have had a lot of doors closed in their faces and everything else, but he kept that mission going and he just kept developing more and more things and concepts. And he was just such an incredible man as far as a pure genius with some of these concepts, uh, with these nutritional supplements and challenging the status quo. He did get himself in trouble a little bit in 1962 with the FDA because of some of the things that he was saying. And he just truly believed in telling the truth about things. And he felt like all disease was caused by nutritional deficiencies and that all disease could be corrected based on the diet. And so as he published a lot of things and talked and really pushed the envelope on a lot of these concepts, the FDA wasn't too happy with him. So they slapped him with a consent decree, basically a gag order in 1962. So he died about 5, 6 years later. And 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 then his legacy kept going with with my aunt, his wife, and then my father, and then with me. So what he started just was just incredible, and he had so many concepts that even today we're just realizing how truthful he was in all those.
It sounds like he would have a lot to say today, even with the rise of the Maha conversations, with exposing how crucial it is to not mess with our food supply, to get closer to nature. And so it's amazing to see his message become more and more and more relevant with him being ahead of his time. Was soil health a part of Dr. Royaley's philosophy from the beginning? Was he that deep into the understanding at that point in time?
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, in growing up on a farm and now think back in the 1920s, all farms were organic, right? I mean, the chemical industry hadn't developed pesticides and herbicides at that point in time. So all these fields were organic and people had to deal with and fight with weeds on a manual basis or whatever. But he understood and knew how important that soil health was to the health of the plant. You can't have a healthy plant if you don't have healthy soil. And so it was really important to have the same concepts that we use today as far as crop rotation and feeding the soil and letting the soil regenerate and working on all those things, having a good microbiome of the soil. These are all concepts that he knew he needed. That's why we had, even from the beginning, our own farmland to grow these crops on. So we've had our own farmland and been doing this for almost 100 years. So yeah, soil is where it all starts, and the health of that soil is absolutely critical.
Wonder what he would say about our default conditions now. You know what I mean? With the soil health in this nation. And when did you personally understand how important the soil health was?
Yeah, I if I go back, I mean, it really started when I was out there, as a summer job in 1983, weeding the beet fields by hand, and you just realize and understand how important that is, and the good black earth, and you see the worms and the bugs and all that great organic matter in the soil, and you realize how these plants grow and how they develop, and it's amazing. Now again, all that good healthy soil, there's a lot of weeds in too, because the weeds love good healthy soil too. So you always got to deal with the weeds. But that is a good sign. That's a good sign that the soil is so healthy. And I understood that even right from the beginning, that there's really something special about our raw materials, this company, because of how we start on the farm like that.
How does weeding your beet fields look different today? I mean, from when you did it? Is it modernized or people really out there picking the weeds still?
Yeah, there's very little hand weeding anymore. We have laser weeders, we have vision controlled guidance system on mechanical cultivation, rotating heads that basically go around the individual plants, all based on vision systems. So we're using modern equipment. We're using the latest in innovation to try to just combat weeds. Period. Because I think you either have the plant or you got a weed. You can't have both. And so we really put a lot into that. And crop rotation is so important with that as well. But yeah, weeds are our biggest enemy. It is just absolutely a constant fight all the time. But We don't have too many hand weeding out there on 1,200 acres. That's really tough to do. We'd have an army of people, but and we actually only have about 7 actual farmers that are out there taking care of that to produce the products that we need.
And so when you say there's the little robotic things going around the plant, it's just literally grabbing the weed up because there's no chemicals in it on your farm, right?
Correct. So mechanical cultivation. So there's these heads on these rotating tines and everything else that just, disturb the soil and throw the dirt back over the weeds and try to keep them down and keep them killed. And so we'll constantly be going back and forth, and every day that we can get in the field we're cultivating and we're working on weed control. Absolutely every single day.
And so what difference would you say, to the public? Like, does the soil ultimately make to what's inside a standard process bottle of supplements?
Yeah, 100%. Those raw materials, those ingredients coming from the plants, coming from those whole foods, can only be as good as the soil that it was grown in. There's no way that you can take up those nutrients from the soil and everything else if the soil doesn't have that good organic matter and all the right, nutrients. And so how we do that rather than applying synthetic application to the soil is through crop rotation and planting different crops. So we will not have the same crop on the same acre for 5 years in a row. And we do a lot of growing of crops that just get plowed right under into the soil because that's how we regenerate the soil. So we'll plant certain crops that pull nitrogen out of the air, and they have nice nodules of nitrogen in their root system. And that just gets plowed under because we'll do soil testing and throughout the whole entire farm, and we'll realize that this field needs a little bit more nitrogen now for the next year, and we just rotate the crops around, and we'll plant then a crop that will just pull that nitrogen out of there and put it into the soil, and then for that next growing season it'll be ready for that next crop. So it's really sophisticated. You think of organic farming and maybe you think of it as a little bit rudimentary, but we have applied so much science to it and so much technology to it that we can do it on a large scale, and it can be done. And it's cost effective to do it that way as well.
Yes, I mean, it seems like that would probably be one of the things that's lost if you sold the company, the willingness to till under entire crops to protect your soil health. And it's fascinating that standard process truly controls the product from the soil to the raw material to the manufacturing to the bottling and the shipping. And someone might ask, like, why go to all that trouble? Where do you think it'd be easiest to cut a corner?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And why go to all that trouble? I believe in that vertical integration, starting from as soon as we can start, which is again our own owning our own farmland, controlling that farmland, having it take 3 years to prepare that land to be certified organic, and making sure that there aren't residual pesticides or herbicides in the land, making sure there's proper buffers around the farm so that there's not drift from other farmers in the area that are spraying or applying chemicals and stuff. So all that's super important to make sure that, again, you start with those quality raw materials. And then there's a big part of that that is the manufacturing part of it. So now how do you take those raw materials right out of the field and now process them down, dehydrate them, make sure that, they're as close to nature as possible, but they're in a different form, a powdered form, or an extract of that gets dried down from a juice, let's say, to now into a powder form that can be put ultimately into a pill. That's a supplement for somebody to take that has a shelf life of 2 years. That's, safe from a bacteria standpoint. And, we look at that too. And we've got to be really careful of that because, unlike other high dose synthetic vitamins, bugs and bacteria and stuff don't want to live in that medium. They want to live in our real food products. So we need to be very careful and very diligent as we grow these things, as we process them, that we're keeping as close to nature for those that nutrition that we can, and all the way through that process. So yeah, again, to how would you cut that? I mean, you'd have to cut out all of the farm. You just buy your raw materials. You could cut out all the manufacturing as well, and you could just have somebody else manufacture for you. You could just be a marketing company and actually have all the processing and everything else done by somebody else and sell products if you're really good at marketing. So I sure feel as a family business and controlling it from start to finish that it's really important for us to control that whole process. So um and I mean it's great for all the, not only the products that we produce and the lives that we change for those that consume them, but all of our employees here, and all the great benefits that we offer them, and the fact that they're happy here. They have, you know, a great opportunity to work towards a solution for somebody's health and meaningful work. So I think that's really important too. That I share with my employees that what they do every day is change people's lives. So we're not making chairs. I mean, everybody needs chairs, right? We need to sit down and stuff like that. But does that really change somebody's life? My employees get really excited because they care so much. They're working on a product that changes somebody's life. And that's pretty cool.
It's amazing. We're
Yeah,
having some of these same conversations in education committees, public health committees across the US at the state level mostly, but at different levels of government. And, our school food system is heavily driven by commodities at scale, and cost is the biggest factor. And we're told that we have millions of children to feed, Leah, and kids will starve if we don't do it this way. And so everything you've learned about soil and food and human nutrition, is feeding someone different than nourishing someone?
absolutely. People can fill their bellies. I mean, this is where Dr. Lee was so long ago, back in the 1920s. I mean, people can take, calories in. They can be fed, but are they truly nourished? Does a body have what it needs to develop, to grow, to develop brain health properly, organ health properly? And again, all those things, water and exercise and all these components of health work together. But if you don't have the right nutrition, you're not going to have those building blocks for the body to perform at its optimal level. So I think we've got to get away from this concept that we cannot feed the world on good whole food organic foods. I mean, we can. It just needs to be done and start on a local basis. We need to get communities rallied around truly growing their own food, realizing what it takes. And it's a commitment. It definitely is. And I always say, I mean, I'm thankful that we're able to help people supplement their needs, but I believe people need to eat the right foods. They need to do everything they can to eat organic and try to have those balanced meals and everything else. It gets tough these days and everybody's on the go. And I think that's where, as well, that's where we fall into play, so that we can provide that supplement to their diet. Nobody eats perfectly right all the time. And so I think that's where it's so important for us to come into that role and say, through supplementation, whole food supplementation, you can provide a much better nutritional need for your own health.
Yes, and it's amazing because I was just last May at my sister-in-law's college graduation, and the keynote speaker at a university was talking about his life's work of fighting global hunger. And I was thinking, "Oh my goodness, aren't people seeing through this by now?" And you seemed so confident when you said, we can do it the right way and feed people. And to me, I mean, I'm not a farmer, so you can speak to this more readily than I can and with more integrity, but it seems like the whole narrative of feeding the world is overwhelming. But when you focus on teaching people to feed their own families and own communities, can't we do that? Can't we scale that across the US, across the globe?
Absolutely. And I think that can be done. We've got to give up some of these ways where it's convenient and it's easy, and we have to help our farmers convert back to organic. Everybody used to be organic at one point in time, right? Everybody was organic. So what happened in the 1920s and 30s when people were being fed by the farms, a lot smaller local farms? We've gone to this, kind of ease of doing farming with chemicals, and we just spray stuff on and, kills the weeds. Great. A couple times a year, they go through and they spray it on, they plant and they harvest at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. And in between, they just spray. And it's really unfortunate. That there needs to be that care taken with our food on a daily basis. And we need to incentivize our farmers to get back to that. But how do we do that? Well, it's supply and demand. If people are demanding more organic produce, they're demanding more organic foods, and they're making those choices. Now, again, not everybody can afford that. So we need to help those organic farmers. If we're going to incentivize and give aid and try to push people in one direction, there's so many things that we could change as far as the health trajectories in this country with uh, childhood illnesses, diabetes, all these things, if we just ate the right foods. So if we can focus on that and getting good food, whole food nutrition, organic into these schools on those local levels, we'll have a lot less issues and health issues that our children are dealing with these days.
Absolutely. I mean, I wish you could talk to every government or governor's administration because we've been trying to tell them for years now that if you want to stop your Medicare, Medicaid from bankrupting your state, then let's focus on nutrition. Let's
Yes.
focus on feeding our state better so that we have the downstream effect. So I love what you're saying. And shifting gears a little bit, but this year, there was proposed federal funding to cut the funding and eliminate all the research dollars for complementary and integrative health. I don't know if you heard about this, but
Yeah.
essentially what they were going to do is take a specific budget out of the NIH to make it so that the $73 million that was going to nutrition and alternative health would no longer be funded at all. And so we sent out an email to our list and said, look, we have to take action. This is the MAHA dollars that all you are asking for that are in danger. And so ultimately we got that restored and we fought to make it right, which was exciting to see. And then I saw that, while we're fighting to preserve this on the federal level, you've actually invested in your own nutrition center. So I'd love to hear about why you went that extra step to start nutrition research of your own.
Yeah. And, I think throughout the years and everything else, I've always felt like I don't need to rely upon somebody else to figure out how to, pay for my research, pay for my farming and everything. And we've just done what we felt has been the right thing. We don't take any sort of government help for our farm or any sort of subsidies or anything else. We just have figured out that this is the right way to do it, and we're committed to doing that. And it's the same on the research side of it. We've had research at Standard Process the whole time, and Dr. Lee, throughout the years, did all sorts of research by sending product across the country to practitioners and getting their feedback on how the products worked. So throughout the years, as I took on my role as leadership here at Santa Process, I realized how important that was to carry on Dr. Lee's work, and not only carry on his work, but to prove his theories and his philosophies. So in 2018, we committed to building a nutrition innovation center. We call it the NIC, NIC, down in Kannapolis, North Carolina. So this is on the North Carolina Research Campus in Kannapolis, where all other state universities of North Carolina are represented, and the focus is really on foods, not not anything else, but foods. And so we thought that really does align with what we want to do. And we had some other opportunities to locate our campus in other parts of the country and stuff like that. We're located here in Palmyra, Wisconsin, so it would have been nice to be just down the road in Madison, Wisconsin. But surrounding ourselves with that kind of atmosphere and everything else down in Kannapolis was really key. And so we started the NIC in 2018, and with the sole purpose of really validating Dr. Lee's whole food philosophy. So we do all sorts of different types of research down there. Um, we actually have our own clinic, research clinic, where we'll see patients coming through the door, and we can do labs. We can do all sorts of different diagnostics there for our research projects. We do some bench style research, or what we call discovery science, as well. So we'll have different cell models and stuff like that that we can do. We work on trying to find different varieties of plants. So let's say a different variety of buckwheat that's higher in rutin levels or higher in quercetin levels that just are naturally higher because of the variety, non-GMO because we're not genetically modified in anything that we grow or raise. So it's just through breeding practices and finding old traditional heirloom seeds and really crops from all sorts of different places in the world that are drought resistant naturally, or that have higher yields of things, and really more towards nutrient value than anything else. They're not bred or genetically modified for yield, for, the maximum profitability out of that product, but more for that nutritional value. And so our research center will work on things like that. We'll work on, just even looking at some of Dr. Lee's theories from the past with some of our glandular extracts and some of that, and realize some of his theories and philosophies. Can we validate those? Because a lot of them are still theories out there. We have a lot of practitioners throughout the country that utilize our products, and see the results and get the results, and they're great. They don't need a research study to document that. But a lot of other practitioners are unwilling to go that route, or don't believe that the products can support certain things a certain way. And so it helps to have that research study, that validation to prove what we're doing. So really exciting. Got a great team of PhDs and really smart people down there, way smarter than me, to help again validate Dr. Lee's philosophies.
Is there any research in the works right now that you're specifically excited about or a theory that you feel like needs to be validated?
Yeah, we did some research on a whole food magnesium product that is grown on the farm here in Wisconsin, with Swiss chard and buckwheat as major components of that. And actually have done some really good research on how the full spectrum of magnesium, not just one type of magnesium that you see out there in the supplement industry, but it's a full spectrum of all the different types of magnesium from a whole food source, and how it actually crosses the blood-brain barrier. So for aiding with sleep and some of these things, it's just really cool to see that, where we go, yeah, we know this magnesium gets into your brain. We know that it's absorbable. We know the facts behind it, and it's a best source of magnesium for you, in what you're taking. So it's exciting things like that we've always known. Well, geez, a whole food source of magnesium is really the best way to go. And it's a matter of, you know what? It is. And now we can prove it. So that's what's so exciting with that.
It's amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
And exactly what you're saying. Some people question today, like, what is science? Like we are supposed to trust science, believe in science. What is
Yeah.
science supposed to validate what we want it to say? But it is, there are pure scientists out there who are looking to confirm what we know about nature. And so, standard process was actually a part of my family's story long before I knew about the company because when I was little, my dad had severe allergies, and his chiropractor actually recommended, I can't remember. I know that Thymex was one of them. And there was a second
Mhm.
one that he always took and completely changed his life. I mean, he got rid of his severe allergies. I wish I could remember what that second bottle was. It might come to mind for you,
Yeah.
but um,
Antronix or Allerplex potentially.
doesn't ring a bell, but it could
Yeah.
be. I'll have to ask him. But
Sure.
did standard process always have this relationship with chiropractic, or did that grow because of your vision or Dr. Royal Lee's vision?
Yeah, I think I mean that goes way back, and we've incorporated working with chiropractors all the way from the beginning. Dr. Lee realized that he needed to get this message out there. And he also realized that more holistic practitioners were more open to hearing and listening to his message and now had access to many more people than what he could potentially, you know, contact through his network. So he really started opening up and focusing on healthcare practitioners. And then anyone that would listen, osteopaths were big when Dr. Lee first started this, and he had a lot of accounts that were osteopaths. Medical doctors, again, back in the 30s and 40s, were interested in what he was saying. But as a whole, the chiropractic philosophy aligned with standard process more than any other practitioner. And I think what they saw was how they treat people holistically, how chiropractic feeds the body to help heal itself, how they adjust the body so that it can correct itself. I mean, all these things, this self healing entity, this innate healing that chiropractic believes in, we just fit so well with their philosophy. So, yeah, Dr. Lee worked very closely with a lot of chiropractic practitioners throughout the years. And we have just always been aligned with that philosophy of chiropractic. And so it's been just I would say a great partnership over the years because chiropractors just love standard process, love what we do, and we've supported that profession extensively as well. So thanking them and supporting their causes and getting behind them whenever we can, helping on the education side of it at their conferences, just helping promote chiropractic overall. So yeah, we've had a great partnership with chiropractors over the years for sure.
Beautiful. It's a paradigm shift. It's an entire shift in a way of thinking. It's amazing partnership. What is, I just want to hear for myself, like, what's one product at Standard Process that you wish more people understood?
Yeah, I mean, I'd go back to the magnesium and stuff too, because I think it's talked about so much right now. We're so devoid of magnesium, and to look at a whole food source for magnesium is just so critical. So that I think is really important. I think we've got some digestive products too, like Zypan, to help break down proteins, and it's such a product that's so misunderstood that I think so many people with gut health issues would just benefit from just a simple product like taking Zypan with every meal. And it's actually kind of a reverse concept as people would think. It's actually to increase your hydrochloric acid in your stomach so that you can break down the food rather than um, like an antacid that you're trying to suppress that. When you actually suppress the acid in your stomach, now your body's not going to be able to break down that food. It's not going to be able to process a nutrition that you just consume from your food and get it to all areas of your body. It's going to just push it through to your digestive system and not absorb that nutrition. So if you increase the hydrochloric acid in your stomach, you get rid of a lot of that gassing, bloating, all those things that people claim that they need the antacids for. And it's the exact opposite of what they think. So that's always a concept that I believe is just, it would be so amazing to get that out there and have people truly understand more about that. Cause I think the health of people's stomachs and what they're eating these days would be improved so much, and they'd feel so much better after a meal by just incorporating a little bit more stomach acid into their diet. So yeah, it's kind of a different concept, but it works. It really does work.
So I'm in a chiropractic family, so I've heard a lot of these illustrations. We're like, whoa, that was common sense. Like, why are we killing the acid when my body's producing more acid, taking all the Tums and stuff? And I'd never heard that one. So that's amazing to hear yet another illustration of quit fighting the body. That it's freedom in your health to say, why is my body producing more acid? It must need it. I think I also heard a chiropractic friend recommending Zypan for the women who have really severe morning sickness and pregnancy,
Mm.
and that it's super helpful to have Zypan if you're someone who like cannot function with morning sickness. So that's amazing.
Yeah, and
If
again, I think that's where it's so important for standard process to be working with our healthcare professionals. I think it's really key that people get that advice and that guidance from a qualified healthcare professional. And there's so much information out there these days, and there's such varying qualities in the supplement market these days. So it's really nice to be able to trust your healthcare practitioner to guide you on not only what products to take, but the quality of the products as well.
so good. So if you yourself were being shipped off to a foreign place and you could only take two supplements with you, which ones would you take?
Boy, that's probably the toughest question that you've asked. I would definitely take something like Catalin just as an overall good health product, just so I'm getting that constant good nutrition. I think secondly, I probably would really focus on immune support and probably take, Catalin and then also Immuplex. And Immuplex is just an overall immune support product of ours. And I would probably do that because I know if we support our immune systems and we take care of that, we're really, we can really fight off a lot of things and just be healthier just by supporting our immune system alone. So but then I could keep going and going, but you said 2, so, oof, that's a hard one.
It's amazing. I love it. Well, I appreciate you sitting down with me. I only have one question left for you. And really, it goes to the heart of your mission because we're fighting to preserve the good things that we know nature has provided us. And we're fighting to preserve the freedom of farmers to farm organically and doctors to practice according to their conscience. And I would love to know what you hope 4 generations from now that people are saying that you protected and that you preserved as Charlie Dubois, who led Standard Process. And what do you hope that your grandchildren and grandchildren's children say that you helped preserve?
Yeah, and I think it's that, you know, people need to focus on their health. They need to focus on eating real food. We need to get all this processed stuff out of our diet. Uh, we need to get back to, just eating real food. I mean, it's honestly, it's that simple. And we need to make those conscious choices because it's so important in the long run to do that. So if I can, rally around one thing and make sure that I get my grandchildren to understand that, grandpa um, did all this hard work and everything else so that, people could be reminded that food really is the medicine that they need to stay healthy. It really is that simple. We need to eat good quality whole foods.
So good. I heard someone ask Secretary Kennedy the other day, how can we trust any food anymore? And I thought his response was good. And it's in alignment with what you said, because he said, you can't as long as you're eating processed foods. And I thought that was hopeful, but truthful to say, yeah, you're going to have to worry about a whole lot as long as you're picking and choosing from the best processed food companies. But if we refocus on whole foods and whole nutrition, then we'll be doing a huge favor for our health and our children's health. So thanks so much, Charlie, for supporting,
Absolutely.
this conversation, for showing up to show us what's possible. And thank you so much for sharing with our audience, because they are looking for options like this, and they're looking for leadership to show us that we can move forward in a way that supports our health and our children's health.
Well, Leah, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share some of my story with you guys. And again, I think that some of the things that are happening today are moving in the right direction, and I love that, and it's about time. So we need to get out there and we need to stand up for what we know is right, and foods are the way to go. So thank you very much.